Real good. Don't worry about it. I ain't gonna worry about it. Don't worry about it. I ain't gonna mess you. I ain't gonna mess you up.
Asking each one of you, if you would please, to take and silence your cell phones. That would be very helpful. And we know this is going to be a great evening, and so we're getting ready to start. We're right at 6:30. So I'm going to turn it over to Bishop, and we're going to start in about 3 more minutes. So if you would like to get some more water, that would be great. But thank you very much. I told him I was like, look, when it comes to phone parenting, I'll keep it short. I got you. Okay, no problem. That's why you moderating. I got you. I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna go ahead into it. Well, Well, good evening again, and we are preparing to begin the town hall. I'll mention for those who just came in that we're just going to ask you to put your mobile phones on silence, airplane mode, whatever works for you. And I'm going to introduce you to Bishop Bertrand Russell Jr., our senior pastor and founder of Fountain of Life House of Worship.
Well, good evening, everyone. God bless you all, and it is such a blessing to be here once again as we are dealing with mental illness, and the conversation continues. So I want to, first of all, I just want to thank the panelists. So let's praise God for all of the panelists. They will be introduced here in a little bit, but I'm going to introduce the moderator, Laura Bullock, who is the founder of CE and the CEO of Hope's Crossing, which is a nonprofit organization right here in Arizona. I've known Laura for a few years. We have some connections, so we are family, and so we are just thanking God for the great work that she is doing here in the city of Phoenix and abroad. And so she's going to come right now, and she's going to take over, and let's just praise God for what is to take place today.
Thank you so much, Bishop, for that great introduction. Good evening and welcome to the Fountain of Life House of Worship. And this is our mental health town hall. And at some point during this conversation, we're going to be shifting to from mental health to mental wellness. We want to make sure that we're being much more proactive and taking on a lot more. Is that better? Oh yeah, that's that's good. I didn't know my voice sounds so good. But so we'll be transitioning from talking about mental health from an illness perspective and really taking an opportunity to think about how we can be a little bit more preventive. How can we be more proactive and kind of nipping these things off and putting some processes in place to help us move in that direction. You know, this conversation continues back from June 7th, where we were here initially talking about mental health and how it's infecting and impacting our families and our communities. And at the time, we were really focused a lot on our children. And so we're going to continue that conversation about how mental health is impacting our kids, especially as they're going back to school. This is a very special time right now where children are going back to school, and we're thinking about all the stress and anxiety and everything that's going on with them as they return to school. But we're going to also put some focus on the stress and anxiety that's happening around our parents, right? And how are we feeling? Because when kids are in school, we're in school. And whether we want to believe that or not, that's a fact. So before we get started, I do want to make a disclaimer, because we do have some professional people on the stage, that the statements made by our panel here tonight are not to be received as clinical treatment. They're not prescriptions of treatment, but in fact shared experiences and resources that are available to the community. So we want to make sure you don't go home and say, well, you know, Dr. Sims said, or Mr. Smith said, in terms of treatment. So very professional in their work, and they will share those experiences with you and tips and strategies on how you can move your family through these areas of stress and anxiety and co-parenting and things like that. But first, let me introduce our panelists here tonight. To my immediate left is Mr. Kenneth Smith. He's the principal of a charter school. He's a community organizer, and he's a board member for Kid in the Corner. And he'll talk to you a little bit more about what that organization, the great work that they're doing. And then to my further left is Dr. Cortez Sims. He's a board-certified mental health coach. He's a facilitator, an educator, and an author. And, you know, we had another panelist that was going to be here tonight, but unfortunately her daughter is not feeling well. So Dr. Hennigan, we will miss her and her expertise this evening. But I want to, before we get started with our questions, I want to just turn your attention to a document that was out at the front table. It's the family, what did we call it? Family Wellness Plan, Family Wellness and Safety Plan, that's its name. And so this document is a single page that was out at the table, and hopefully you picked it up. And the reason we wanted to put this document in the handout for you today is as the panelists and I were talking about our strategy, we wanted to make sure you had a tangible something that you can walk away with. This family wellness and safety plan is designed to have you start to think about, what is my family experiencing as it relates, thank you so much, as it relates to mental health, stress, anxiety, and some of the ills and challenges around co-parenting. And so as we are presenting today, and as our panelists are beginning to share information with you, I want you to look at that wellness and safety plan, and I want you to think about those questions that are there. And as you're hearing information, please use those forms to jot down questions that you may have or goals that you may have. And as you hear certain things, it may prompt you to think about, how do we deal with those things? And so please use that plan to start to write questions, start to think about how your family is operating, and how we can be of assistance to you as we go through our conversation today. So again, make sure you, kind of use that document to, when we're done, hopefully you have the makings of a plan, right? And if you need support, we'll be here to support you through that, but we want you to have something to get started with. So let's start with discussing some misconceptions about mental health. And so I gave the panel some questions to think about, and there's a lot of myths out about mental health. And I want to talk to Dr. Sims and with one of these myths, and I want you to dismiss it for us, that says mental health conditions can end your career.
Can mental health conditions end your career?
End your career. A lot of times people think when they have mental health,
Okay.
I'm done. There's nothing else I can do. I just have to be sick. I have to lay in my bed. I can't function. I can't be productive. I'm just kind of done. So dismiss that myth for us.
That is not true. That is not true. Everybody say that with me. That is not true. Thomas Edison, you guys ever heard of him? Born in the 1800s, formed the light bulb. Did you guys know that he was in special ed? Right. And because he was a special ed student, his mother took him out of class because he just kept being very disruptive in the class and things like that. And now here we are still turning on light bulbs and things like that because of somebody who was able to make all these different inventions that we still deal with today. Because even part of having these mental disorders and things like that, you can still go further. Most of all human beings have some type of disorder or some type of illness or some type of strain when it comes to mental health, and they still make it through. It's all about having the assistance, accepting what you have, and managing it. Yes. There's a lot of celebrities that are coming out right now, and we're loving their movies like you wouldn't believe, and doing very well, and admitting this is what I've been dealing with, but it's definitely doable.
Awesome, thank you for that. Mr. Smith, mental health conditions are so severe. They're just so severe.
Oh, I thought there was going to be more than that.
It's not a small thing. It's like this big animal, the big elephant in the room.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. First of all, thanks for the disclaimer, because I want to make sure I don't get sued. So thank you very much. No, I wanted to say this. It's a spectrum. Just like we're using that word for a lot of other areas in our lives, and we're starting to identify their spectrums and different things in our life. There's a spectrum when it comes to mental health. A person that might have low-grade depression may be able to go and work their job just fine. I mean, our forever First Lady, Michelle Obama, had low-grade depression for a number of years while she was in the White House because of the pressure that particular position put on her, triggered her into low-grade depression. There are plenty of people that may have extreme or severe cases, but for the majority of people are just dealing with the level of anxiety and depression, and it's unidentified. And it's really, when we talk about what Laura and I talk about when it comes to Hope's Crossing, and it's a pathological thing. This stuff is passed down. These procedures, these things that happen to us, the things that we have to deal with in our lives are passed down. And what we're finding is that a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with is because of what we've experienced, because of the lineage and the pathology of what goes on within our culture. And instead of us seeking help or acknowledging that we even need help, we would rather put our head down and push through. But we're not in the fields, all right? We're not in the big house. We're not, those days are, figuratively over. So then how do we then now navigate that mentality, right, of today's issues with, you know what, that you can only be, in order for you to be a successful black woman, you can only be a strong black woman. There's no other successful black woman out there. If you look fragile or vulnerable, you can't do that. You have to handle your business. You have to go what you got. We got to start letting those things go. Women are men and men are men, and we have to allow ourselves to let this thing, that severe issue that is always something big that you're running down the street losing your mind. That is a very small percentage of the people that have mental health issues, and those people that are that severe are usually cycling in and out of the system so much that they are the ones that, are not able to function. But most of us are functioning in some way, shape, or form.
So Dr. Sims, let's talk a little bit about, because you and I do some coaching, right. And when we approach individuals that are experiencing certain behaviors that they don't understand, talk about why you feel your experience has been that people will not raise their hand and say, help me. And then also, how do we help them understand that this is not a lifetime, curse, right? So why aren't we saying, help me, and then this is not a lifelong curse, right?
I would address that by saying, now, it's easy to say that it's shame. I'm ashamed of what I'm dealing with. I'm embarrassed, or nobody told me, and things like that. That's one of those basic things that they normally say. But a lot of it has a lot to do with it doesn't look normalized enough to make me feel comfortable to admit. Because when you do any type of confession, it puts you out there. It puts you in a place of being vulnerable. And the average person does not want to feel vulnerable. Here's the other thing. Whenever you hear people at different ages say stuff like, well, I don't want to raise my hand because I'm shy. Well, shyness is, I mean, out of a lot of experience and doing a lot of interventions, I discovered that shyness is a level of pride. Because you shy your way out of things that you're too prideful to admit that it's going to make me look weak. And if I'm in a household that's exposed me to saying, you're bigger than that, you need to be a strong black woman, strong woman, or whatever person of color, then that says, well, if I'm not that, then I'm definitely not going to confess and say I'm this. And so we can succeed past that. But what happens is the more of us that says, hey, I used to be like that, but this is the way I really am. And that's what really breaks the yokes or the silhouette, I should say, from us believing that this is the only way I can be versus let me just learn how to be original. But we don't have enough authentic people, I should say, that can say, let's really keep it real. Because even people who keep it real know how to go ahead and turn on and become phony. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, can you?
You just want to add on, it's them family secrets too. All right, let's talk about some things that's a family secrets. So I'll give you an example. My mom dealt with anxiety. My mom had 10 kids. I'm number 9 out of 10. She raised all of us. She worked full time. Amazing woman. Had anxiety. Okay, heavy anxiety. She wake me up at 3 o'clock. I'm 9. She wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's go to the store, get something to eat. Now that's when the stores is open late, y'all. Let's go to the store, get something to eat. Okay, cool. She'll drive me to the store, buy all these snacks. I'm up all night. I'm up keeping her company, laughing, eating snacks. She didn't eat none of them because she didn't eat snacks, right? And she was like, oh, you have to go to school the next day. You're fine. Just stay up and hang out with me. She was having a panic attack. She was having a panic attack. And what somebody told her to do is when you have a panic attack, go drive. Go drive around, go find something to do. What ends up happening is that our most vulnerable time is sleep, which I'll talk about later. And so what she was having is when she finally rested, because she was a mother of 10, because she was raising and taking care of children, she didn't actually rest. Because she was worried about the bill and the front door needs to be fixed and this child needs shoes and this child needs jacket. And she was so worried that she had heavy anxiety. She never said those words. Oh, I'm fine. She was fine the next day. You ain't got to go to school. Just help me clean up the house real quick. We good. Wait a minute, Mom. We was up to 4 o'clock in the morning eating snacks and watching Sanford and Son. What's going on? And I think it never was identified. It was never told. And there was never a remedy to it. It was always something that is a secret. You know, Mom kind of gets up and walks a lot at night and is walking. Sometimes walks neighborhoods a lot at night, walks the park or whatever at 3 o'clock in the morning. Some of that is anxiety. It's not identifiable because nobody's come in our community and said, hey, that's anxiety. And you're on the back end of it right now. You need to get on the front end of it and start some interventions and some therapeutics to keep you from having that 3 a.m. wake up where you're having whoa, what's going on? I need to take a cold shower, calm my nervous system down, and then walk the park for 2 hours. This is what's happening. So we need to have those conversations. Our generation has not been taught. Generations, not just ours, generations have not been taught how to have common language about mental health. So now we, who are identifying it right now, are saying, okay, we're experiencing this and we're experiencing agitation, COVID, agitation to it. Okay, what's going on? And people above us are like, I've been dealing with that. What are you talking about? You know? So we'll talk about that.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Quickly. I love how you were saying about the whole secret stuff in the family and then generational things that we've learned from other people, which is, in the behavioral health, we call that patternistic behaviors. So when you see these patterns going on and you say, well, I'm only doing this because of what I was exposed to, or this is what my mama taught me. One of the things that we must dispel and kill is to say, okay, if they're encouraging me to go to school, let me learn the things so I can unlearn things. Because if I'm told to go ahead and drive in a car to deal with my anxiety, that may not work for the way I'm built up. Yes. God handpick and create people specifically to do things and to break curses that's not true. And if it's a lot of fear going on and panicking, because panic is nothing but groundless fear. Yes. It doesn't even exist. We think something's going to happen to me because this is what they said. Well, you're not going to even meet they. Who are they? It's an illusion. But if I feed this information to you long enough, I'm going to do what? Believe it and buy it. And then what happens is, which is what Ms. Bullock says all the time, is you cannot continue to keep owning it. Because when you own it, you take it home with you, and then you go ahead and put it on the shelf, and then you go ahead and magnify it, and now it's a trophy in your house. Because somebody told me this. You know, so we have to definitely dispel that, because these secrets and stuff like that, spiritually, on a spiritual level, is really witchcraft. That's a whole nother story.
I don't have any witchcraft questions. But what I will say is that what I'm hearing is that we can't continue to ignore what we feel. It's okay to feel. Don't shut it down. Don't say, it's nothing. It's okay to feel, and the important thing with that is once you feel it, learn to put a voice to it. Learn to say, it's okay to say I feel depressed if you know what depressed feels like. It's okay to say that. It's not, look, the windows of heaven ain't gonna open up and slash you because you feel depressed. What will happen is someone will come to support you. So we can't continue to ignore what we feel and not put a voice to what we feel, first of all. And the second thing I would say when you said, I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. But what I was gonna say was pride, that's what it was. When you talked about pride is really protection of your rejection. It's protection.
Can you repeat that, please? Because I think the audience felt that, ma'am.
Pride is protecting the rejection that you felt over time. Right? Mm-hmm. We're prideful because we don't want to feel that anymore. I'm too good for that. I do that well. Don't say that about me. I'm good at what I do. I heard a young lady say, I'm not a bad parent. And I said, I didn't say you were a bad parent. What I said was, your son needs more of your attention. So the other part of this statement is that we want to make sure that when we hear what we hear acknowledge what we heard. Don't start taking the statement and creating your own message based on what someone said to you. And we'll talk about healthy communications a little bit later, but there are things that you can do from a place of communication in a very healthy way to remedy that, where you understand what's being said and not take it and turn it into some other statement that, you know, you were worried about something this morning, and because somebody said, you know, your shoes, they're kind of cute. Oh, well, you don't think they the bomb? No, I just said they're kind of cute. You know, somebody told you your shoes were ugly this morning. That wasn't me. You know, it's that kind of thing where we take it and we magnify it and we make it bigger than it is, and then we go off on this tangent about something that doesn't matter, creating anxiety, creating all kinds of other issues. And so we'll talk about this communication thing as well. And so I think the final thing I want to ask when we talk about the myths around mental health is that let's talk about how we can be proactive when it comes to concerns. We may not know what it is, we're just concerned. I'm concerned that I've been sleeping for 2 days and can't quite get it together. I'm concerned that I keep, these thoughts just keep running through my head. I can't sleep. I'm concerned that Johnny won't go to school because he keep oversleeping. And he oversleeps, he messes up my work day, and we all at home. How can we be a little bit more proactive and be more attentive to what is happening when it relates to things like mental health?
So even before we
Bishop,
get to that, you're talking about the various concerns.
Yes.
I think a lot of times, many of us, because of the stigma that goes along with recognizing that there's something here, I'm having some stress or anxiety. What are some of the symptoms? Because many times, many of us are going through various things in life, and we're actually going through anxiety and other levels of, psychological issues, and we may not be able to recognize it, and we can't put a name to it. So maybe we can talk about, but before we get into the concerns and how to deal with it, what are some of those symptoms?
So, Mr. Smith, I'll let you start with that.
So first of all, anxiety or any mental health issues show up different in men and women. Let's just get that from the jump. Men, anxiety shows up as anger. And when we're anxious, we show anger or frustration, irritability. Depression also shows up in men as irritability, frustration, stress. We're stressed, right? But we're not taught to lay in the bed kind of a thing, right? And take extra time. We're taught to deal with it other ways, and mostly it's releasing anger. Another indicator is obviously sex drive. So if you don't have, your sex drive is changing, you're probably having issues with anxiety or depression. If you're of a person of the age that's having sex and married. We're in a church. And so.
And not married.
And
we're in the church.
Huh? I said married. That's what I said.
I said and not married.
Oh, okay. We in a church. All right. So, so those are indicators of a lack of connection. So, for example, the things I used to do, I don't do anymore. You know, we used to sit at 9 o'clock and watch TV together. I don't want to do that with you anymore. And usually, I'm being perfectly honest with regards to men, is we're gonna visit that upon the closest people to us. We're going to visit that upon the closest people to us. So our spouse, our children, if we're depressed and we're anxious, that's what that happens there. Women is pushed through. Some of it's lay in bed. Some of it is emotional outburst. Some of it is a lack of child rearing. If you have children, some things no longer you want to do to rear your children. That's depression. Anxiety, of course, has to deal with sleep. So women's sleep are actually affected much more than men in terms of anxious behavior. Men, their sleep is challenged, but nobody's really paying attention to dad's sleeping. They're paying attention to mom's sleeping mostly, right? And men have a tendency, because we don't have usually direct child caring or child rearing ability to do that, we can typically get more sleep. But women happens to lose that a lot. Loss of hair loss. No, I'm just being honest, right? And it's not because you're old. Some of it because you're dealing with anxiety and depression. So those are some of the indicators for children. Children have a whole, and I work with youth. So children act out totally different. So they're changing behavior on campus, their lack of wanting to do any after-school activities, their lack of wanting to do family functions, their lack of wanting to, their relationship may change with their siblings, their relationship may change with you, their relationship to their phone will grow. Their relationship with their phone will grow because they're isolating. Children have a tendency to isolate and get very angry and act out when they have anxiety and depression.
Dr. Sims, go ahead.
Let me add to that. Another symptom, depression. All right. When it comes to depression, which is considered one of the highest things that's been reported, the need for caffeine. How many coffee drinks do we have in the house? Raise your hand up in the house of God. Be honest. All the way up. Raise it up. Let me say this. Caffeine does something to boost a lot of the different chemicals that you have. And if you cannot seem to operate without caffeine to start your day, always check to see if there's anything within you that has you depressed or you hate what you do. What's been reported is if you don't like your job, you don't like where you are in your life, things are not going your way, that's a sign of depression. So I need something to boost me up to make me feel good about myself, just to start my day. This is why Starbucks and a lot of stores are strategically placed in neighborhoods, corporate America, corporate jobs, and even down to our low-income areas, because there's a lot of crime. There's a lot of low-income housing. They don't like where they live. So we'll go ahead and Dutch Brothers might be everywhere. Dunkin' Donuts, different sales. A lot of things that has a lot to do with sugars. Sugars is fattening. It will make you be depressed. So if I can give you a lot of sugar, and that goes from Monster drinks down to alcohol. I used to teach a lot of substance abuse classes, and I had a lot of people that was fighting, going through their sobriety issues and stuff, and it was like, since I'm going through sobriety and I can't get my drink, I need to give me a Monster. I need to put, and so I've had clients that will pour Monsters inside of a Mountain Dew, because Mountain Dew is considered the highest caffeine, right? So you guys got to watch that. You have to ask yourself, is there anything within me that needs 2 or 3 cups of coffee? And it's within the same hour before I even start my job, because you might have something that's weighing on you so heavy. Anxiety is simply the absence of God's peace. If you don't have peace about something, you're not settled. Ooh, it's quiet in here. Yes, it is. So so you have to ask yourself, why am I so anxious? anxiety. When you're anxious about something, you start fidgeting, all that little stuff, whatever. Those are different signs you have to ask yourself, because God is always saying, hey, be at peace. Peace be unto you. He's speaking. And then he try to get you to come to church so you can have peace, because your house is a wreck. Mr. Smith spoke about, the housing, and if your room is not clean. I've seen people have high phobia issues and stuff like that or a pack rat or a hoarder, because they've worked so much, they had a lot of mental and emotional connections to a lot of sentiment stuff or buying stuff, because they work so hard, had so much stress, that they still would keep plastic on the couches and stuff and can't even release it because they feel like something's going to be taken away from them. Abandonment. It's a lot of different symptoms that you have to ask yourself, am I living like that, or do I have parents that still live like that? Because they've had years or whatever period or idiom that they lived in, that they still live there, and it's 25 years later. I have it all in my family. I'm like, you do know that we can release this and do a garage sale. I'm not getting rid of this TV. I'm not getting rid of this couch. And it would get angry at you. And when you ask them, what did this mean when you bought this? Well, this is because it took us 20 years to get a television, because we didn't have entertainment in our house, because it was 15 of us. That would make sense to me. So that would that would definitely alter how you feel emotionally, and it would mess with you mentally. And now you don't even feel like you can release it, because something tell you that you're not going to be blessed no more. So I got to hoard and keep all of this stuff and do all this stuff and keep, even expired food. Ooh, this is good. Expired food in your refrigerator, because you used to not having enough food in the house.
Right, and that's trauma. I just want to add anxiety, also anxiety in terms of what he's referring to in the religious realm, but there are actual mental health situations in terms of anxiety as well. It is a mental health issue. So people do need to receive therapeutics. I mean, obviously, the House of God is one, but there are also other therapeutic things that people can do, as well as there may have to be, and I hate to say the word, some going to a doctor to have a conversation, which we'll talk about more, but because some people have irrational anxiety, some people have anxiety about just walking out the door, some people have anxiety that are irrational about other things that may not fit your definition. So yeah, we want to make sure I hit on that as well, because those are some other medical things, because some things are medically passed down to you as well.
Yes,
Some
yes.
pathology, but also some medically things that are passed down as well. We need to acknowledge that.
Awesome. And that's all very true. And I think the only thing I would add is for our workaholics. Who are our workaholics in the house? Just can't stop. Always got a project. Always got a project.
That's a trauma
You might
response.
want it's a trauma response. So you might want to just think about, why is it I can't stop? Ask yourself the question. Why can't I rest? Why can't I sit still? Look, I'm a recovering workaholic. Okay? It didn't take anything but God to lay me on my back for 7 months, because I couldn't stop. I was doing everything. I had every project under the sun going. Working full time, running a nonprofit full time, going to school full time. I thought I was Superwoman. That cape has been hung up for so long, and the boots that go with it, because 7 months on my back in the bed was enough. So you have to check yourself. And what I realized is there was some anxiety going on that I would refuse to, one, acknowledge, and two, deal with.
Can I add just real, if you're a person that works a lot and have a lot of projects, do yourself a favor and plan yourself your own time away and your own vacation.
Yeah.
Do that. Do that.
Yeah.
And take everything else. Sometimes maybe you have to shut the phone off. And if you have a panic attack, or if you're anxious and you can't rest, meaning when you go on vacation, you can't be vacationing, something's up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what your body has told you is your trauma response is saying go, 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 go. That's how you're getting your fix, by doing something else, being busy,
Yeah.
right? But when you actually sit and give yourself, not you and the kids, you and whoever you with, you leave, I don't know, go in the woods and yodel or something. You go out there, and if you can't sit and read a book for 2-3 hours and do nothing, if you can't put your feet in a pool and relax, if you're still up moving around trying to find things to do, you need to go talk to somebody. Because that means that the work is not the issue. You're always going to find something. Somebody's always going to hand you something off their plate. Trust and believe that.
Yeah.
But it's going to be, that's an indicator. It's another major indicator, because what's going to happen is you're going to have a panic attack on that vacation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you do go on vacation with your family, you notice yourself get more, people think they get more anxious because you're planning for the trip and you're planning for the kids and you're planning for everything. No, you're getting more anxious because you actually have to rest.
You have to leave some stuff
You have to
behind.
rest. Once you get to your destination, you have to sit. And you, instead of sitting, is fussing at the kids. Why are you, come out of that pool, come over here. Oh, you need to sit down. You can't even rest. I see people on vacation all the time. They stress themselves out on vacation because they're so used to moving. They cannot sit and rest. Let sleeping dogs lie. They can't do it. So that tells you, that is a major indicator that you're already in anxiety and you're already panicking, but you're noticing it and you're taking it out on your family and your kids. So by the time you get back from the trip, people say this all the time. Oh, I need an extra day to recover from the vacation.
Right. I need a vacation.
Then you didn't vacation. You basically took all your stuff you had with you on the road.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was
You took the show on the road.
Right.
that's the other thing I was just going to say is, if you are the one that says, I need a vacation from my vacation.
You
yeah,
didn't
you didn't
vacation.
vacation.
No.
You didn't vacation. And what I can tell you is, practice makes perfect, or practice makes
Permanent.
permanent. Practice makes permanent.
That's good. Thank you.
So practice going on vacation. Take 1 day. Take 1 hour. Some of us have to start small.
If you got good benefits, sick time, take it. And I'm telling you, these young people out here, I'm sorry to interrupt, these young folks got this down pat. Because we worked. We worked. And I have never met people in their 20s and 30s now talking about, I have no sick time. Why? I use it. I know a lady that I work with that had 270 days
That's insane.
of vacation days. It rolled over. She worked somewhere for 27 years. She gets 10 to 15 days a year. She held on to them and she cashed her money out at 50%. They gave her, and then she was happy. They gave me half of my day. So when I retired, they gave me half. And I said, you could have had all the days if you would just took a day off. But
So-
the pride, the badge that she's wearing on herself is, I worked all those years for those people, and I did all that great thing for those people, and they gave me half of my money.
Can I speak to that real quick?
Dr. Sims, go ahead.
And ladies and gentlemen, usually with that type of behavior, because I know some people like that too, and I was almost on my way, and I was like, what am I doing? Because vacation means to vacate, right, from the premise. And I realized that when people operate like that, because fear is in there, because they didn't have job security, now you have phobia because you think something's going to be taken away from you. And it's really bad where I used to be, where I used to take my laptop and still be checking my emails on vacation. And I'm just like, what am I proving to who? So you don't trust God on a spiritual point, or work real hard showing your skills to get this job, and then you don't take advantage of the benefits that's been blessed in front of you and saying, hey, I'm living my good life. So to your point, you are absolutely right about that, because if you don't execute that, then who are you really living it for? And that would definitely interrupt any type of peace of mind that you would have, and then you would be angry because of what you came back to. Well, it was reasons for that. A lot of times, you were supposed to vacate just to be able to go ahead and be like, I realize I work so much, I need to put my 2 weeks notice in, because I realize I don't even like what I do. I'm not even doing what I want to do. And a lot of us work like that. We're victims of that. You know, feeling good just to say, and you realize, was I really, really loyal to this job because I was really insecure as a person?
Well, is it part of your life and your personal mission? See, that's another thing, but that's a whole other topic.
That's another
Yes,
topic.
it's another.
Yeah, I
Go
do
ahead.
want to acknowledge that I am a recovering workaholic.
Yes. Thank you.
I am. And so my remedy to it, being a pastor and having my own law practice, and it was just too much. So what I do, at least once a month, deuces.
Yes.
That's it.
And I follow you on Facebook,
I'm
and I
out.
know you deucing.
I go, it might be a day, it might be 2 days, but I'm constantly vacating.
Yes, sir.
I'm vacating the church. I'm vacating my law practice. I'm vacating because if you don't take time for yourself,
Come on.
self will wear you out.
Right.
And so I'm just, I've learned that, and so I was just talking to Dr. Wooten here. We were talking out there, and so she said, so what have you been doing? And I said, I've been resting and some work, and I just kept saying, I've been resting and resting, because when you rest your body and when you are able to rest your mind, it does wonders for you. So those of you who are workaholics, you need to get to a place to where you can admit and say, I'm a workaholic and I have to do better.
Yeah. And you have to make commitments to yourself. You know, you have to find the value in you to say that, to say, I deserve vacation, I deserve time away, I'm going to recharge myself. Because the whole idea is that rest and peace is going to make you more productive when you return. So I hope we've given you a lot of information around what are some of those symptoms to kind of look out for, because we have so much more to talk about, and I want to make sure we touch on those things too. There are 4 common mental illnesses among young people, Mr. Smith. Health and Human Services says that it's inconsistent with what you're setting. I'm sorry. Is it consistent with what you're seeing in the school system of anxiety, depression, eating disorder, and deficits or hyperactivity?
Yes, that is 100%. We're seeing higher rates of first of all, the biggest issue right now is anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
Period. Your students are experiencing anxiety. The root of it is screen time. They have an enormous amount of screen time. And when they're doing those screen time, they're absorbing a huge, infinite amount of information. Information that the brain is not ready to develop to process. That's what teachers are for, to help you process information. You get a bunch of information, we're here to synthesize that. Your children are exposed to, whether it's YouTube, whether it's news, whether it's social media at any level, and they're absorbing an enormous amount of information, and no one is there to synthesize it from them. That's one. Two, that light that they're getting is their brain is receiving that light at a high rate for hours upon hours upon hours. The conversation we had previously about our generation having a TV in our room or having a TV in the living room might not have been that big of a deal, and it may not be as big of a deal back then, but it is now, because everything they do is on the screen. They're on the phones, then they go to school, they have the laptops, then they come back home, they're on the phone, they're on the TV. We have to limit screen time because it's having our students be anxious, our youth be very anxious and depressed, and they don't even know. So those are very prominent. Hyperactivity is out of the screen time as well. They're quick to say that people of color or black people are hyperactive. Some of that is just, students need to grow up. Not all of our kids need to be on IEPs, y'all. Not all of our kids need to be on 504s. Not all of our kids need that. We have a very high rate of special education identification among people of color in this country because they don't understand our cultural significance. And they don't understand that we are the culture. Yes. So that's kind of the situation. Not enough of us in special education to identify each other either. So that's another issue. But in terms of those four things, yes, the answer is yes, and it's very prominent. Eating disorders, probably the bottom of the list. I will say that if a person is anxious, they're probably having stomach issues as well. So those kind of things go hand in hand. Constipation, or some kind of stomach or bowel issue because they're overly anxious, especially if they're a high-performing student. Your high-performing student, your student that is getting the straight A's, that are knocking it out, getting all the awards, are usually sometimes your most anxious students and are dealing with some issue. I mean, get them some fiber so they can get to their system, but also talk to them about the other stuff as well.
Dr. Sims, do you have anything to add to that?
No. It's good.
So Mr. Smith, help our audience understand what parents can do to kind of get a jump start on preparing their students that haven't quite gone back to school, but now that they are, because most of them are in school now, how can parents get a jump start on helping minimize screen time and being more engaged with their students so that they can be comfortable coming off the screen? Because kids will come off the screen if they feel there's something to come off the screen too. So we
Correct.
have to engage them in a way that makes them feel comfortable coming off the screen. So what can they?
So
what
this
kind
is
of
for your
things can
family
they do?
plan, y'all. If you have anything to write down, write this down.
Yes.
You need to limit your screen time for your children to 2 hours at the maximum. I know that sounds absolutely insane. Right now, people over here like, I can't believe you just said that, right? And you know why? I'm gonna tell you why. Because if you limit it to 2 hours at home, you're not counting all the day they've been on it.
Is that
You see what I'm saying? So
Is that 2 hours a week?
a day at home, not school, because they take the phone to school, they're on the phone. They take the phone lunch, they're on lunch. They take it on the way home, they're on the phone. But when you get in the house, you got 2 hours. And you can do any 2 hours any way you want, before bed or whatever. Take the phones out of the room when they go to sleep. You have to. It's not even an if. You have to. I'm gonna tell you 2 reasons why. Look, y'all laughing like, ooh, it's gonna be some shaking in the sea over here, y'all. Okay? But you have to, and I'm gonna tell you why. 2 reasons. Cyberbullying. Your child, you're letting the enemies of your children in their room when you leave that phone with them at night. So we used to have an issue at school, go home, we didn't even see those kids till the next morning. We could recover. Your students or your children are not recovering. The group chat is being sent. The memes are being sent. The DM is getting hit up. They're getting hit from all different angles all the time, and you're letting it sit on the phone in their room. They're not sleeping, so it's messing up their sleep. They're getting too much screen time, and they're getting clowned real bad. Because children now have everything they didn't say to your face, they're saying on the phones to your children. There are students and children that say, kill yourself. I don't know why he or she is hanging out with us. What's going on? And they're on the same group chat. They'll be in the same group chat or in the same DM talking about the person that's in the DM or group chat with them. You have to take it away and give your children the opportunity for their brains to rest and develop. Their brains are not developing because they're on the phones all throughout the night. Now, this is all age appropriate. Clearly, if a person is 17 years old, 2 to 4 hours, right? Because I have a 17-year-old son. He has a 2-3 hour limit. I also have a 10-year-old son. He doesn't even have a phone. He has a watch, and he only has 10 numbers he can call, okay? There ain't no smartphone. I ain't gonna go there. All right, so I'm just trying to let you guys know those are some of the things you guys need to think about, and really, 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 for your child's mental health, you will notice if you give them something else to do. I have recipes from HelloFresh that my nephews make and my sons make. I have stuff they can do outside. Kick your kids out the house. Parks are there if they're safe. Are there. If you have a backyard, if you have a front yard, if you have a garden you can do a planter box. They can water the grass, they can water the lawn, they need at least 15 minutes of sun a day to fight depression. And for melanin folks, we need at least 30 because of our vitamin D deficiency usually within our community. You need to have your kids outside. Now, the schools are required to have them outside, especially for K-6, but you notice depression, anxiety hit with our teenagers higher. Why? They don't do recess, and they're not out in the sun. So when your teenager is sluggish, and that group needs more sleep than the other group. Your actual teenager needs more sleep, 9 to 10 hours a night, than your fourth grader. But they get less, they go to school earlier, they do more, they do activities more than anybody else. There you go.
So I know that taking the phones away was quite a comical moment.
But it's their phone.
But Mr. Smith, give our audience some practical tips on how to communicate with their students about this new policy, this new home policy, or why this is so important. The communication part of this must happen. We're not saying take the phone
right
without having a conversation about why
you have to
this
communicate
is necessary.
appropriately.
Yeah.
So when I say do that, please do not go home and start bullying your kid, okay? Because I'm old school, but I'm also new school, okay? Like I told you, my mom had 10 kids. I'm number 9, so my mom was old school, right? So I understand whatever she said, go. You have to gradually work to that. Give them an opportunity to have a conversation with you about what they want to do and how you guys want to do this. Because now you're in a situation where you've already given them a whole lot of freedom, right? And so to go from a whole lot of freedom to 2 hours, you're probably not going to have the right kid. And I also will point out to you, it's like a drug. So once you do take it away, they're going to be freaking out. They're going to have withdrawals, big time, for the first 2 weeks. Okay, that's the truth of it. However, have a conversation, a real comprehensive conversation, because the new school says they have to own that. You know, back in the day, my mom took the phone. What'd I do? Went to the dollar store, got a $9 phone, plugged it into the jack that was in there, and was on the phone with my girls all night. That's why. Because I didn't have any. My mom said, whatever I say, go. So I had to hide it. You don't want your kids getting hot phones from their friends, drop phones, all this stuff, because they're limited, and you don't want that. So please have them come in with you and communicate, look, I just want you to sleep. I just want you to sleep well. I just want you to be able to be functional as an adult. I love you. If that's not enough for you, oh well, you're doing it anyway. No, I'm just kidding. No, but have that communication, because it is the best thing for them. but explain it like I'm explaining it to y'all. Why? And I'm gonna tell you, some students or some youth are okay with it because they know what's going on in the DM. They know what's going on in the DM. And they're not telling you because nobody's monitoring them to tell you.
Yeah, that's great. Did you want to add something to that?
Excuse me.
All electronics.
If
Yeah.
you're going to ask a question,
sorry.
if we can have you come to the microphone. So
I
we can-
apologize. I answered out of. Go ahead. Go ahead. They want you to ask it again for the people in the back.
So I was just saying, like, all electronics, like video games, everything limited to 2 hours.
Absolutely. I would, if you're doing video games and phone, I would do 3, right? But keep in mind, they're coming home from school, it's 4 or 5 o'clock. So 2 hours is pretty much the evening, right? And if somebody's playing video games 9, 10 o'clock at night, it's a problem. So 2 hours, yep, all electronics. I shut it down in my house. Everything gets shut off. And I don't get on the phone. If you do it for you let them monitor you too. My children now monitor me. Dad, you on the phone? You right, son. And it's good for our mental health as well.
Well, and I think it's all part of that communication, right? And so you're right. Kids are not like us. We were told what to do and we did it. Or else, right? Mom and dad would knock us out if we didn't do what we were told. But kids today, they want to have a voice. And it's important for them to have a voice, right? So it has to be some communication that goes on. Has to be a discussion that goes on. Now, you certainly have the final say because you're the parent, but at least they're involved, right? They have to kind of be a part of that, and they have to feel like they were equal in the decision, even though you said this is what's going to happen. So I think that is great, but that communication is vital.
Board games are good too, y'all. Anything to do with their hands. We need engineers. We need, especially people of color being engineers. Anything they can do to help with science or engineering, get them little Connect kits or whatever. Give them as much stuff as they can to mess around with. We want our kids to get their imagination, continue to play, no matter how old they are. They need it.
And so remember in the beginning, I said we're going to be shifting from mental health to mental wellness. These are some of these tips and practical steps that can be taken that shift from mental health to mental wellness, right? And so this is a shift for everyone, right? We have to shift too, because we gave them the phone. We told them you got unlimited minutes and unlimited data, and you could be on the phone all night. And them batteries last longer now than they used to, right? So when you give it to them, they on the phone all night. And so the sooner you're able to start having this kind of a conversation and moving towards wellness as opposed to illness, you're really making a great impact in your family. So the last question around our children, are there any apps, we just talked about taking the phone away, but are there any apps on the phones that kids can use to help them with the personal challenges that they're facing?
Google Link has an app. There are many free apps you can Google. You can literally Google free apps to monitor mobile phones, and you'll come up with at least 10 free apps on there that you can monitor their screen time. You can monitor their phone screen time. Please Google Link and a couple other ones I have that I've looked up as well. If you want to have any other questions, I'll have some afterwards you want to ask me. But there's a number of different ones that can monitor your student's screen time and your children's screen time. There's also another way, change the Wi-Fi passcode. I'm telling you, I have a cousin, she just changed the Wi-Fi passcode. They can't get in. Game over. I mean, these are things that you don't have. Sometimes you don't want to do it like that, but it's like those are things you need to think about in terms of that, and then turning it in. And I also believe that turning it into a common space where everybody has their phones. No one should be, and I'm including us adults, should have their phones next to them unless you are an emergency responder. Unless you're doing emergency response, you shouldn't have your phone sitting next to you every night. It should be somewhere common, right? Common charging area, a common charging station, in the kitchen, in the living room. They always say if you put your alarm clock in the bathroom, you never have to hit snooze again, right? Stuff like that. You have to. These are wellness tips that help you monitor, because if you have to get up and walk to the kitchen to look at that meme, you're probably gonna wait till tomorrow. unless it's really good. You can wait till tomorrow.
Dr. Sims?
I'm just going to add to that point too. I was just about to say that the parents, because we're so much of the leaders and examples of how it should roll out and the results and the outcomes that we're looking for. It's good to implement as a family meeting. Make it creative. Be fun with it. Don't be boring. Be like, oh, I'm sorry to do this to you. I wouldn't want to cooperate either, or whatever. Because a lot of us as parents are so addicted to the phone. We even worse than the child too. But we want them to produce what we want, but we just as bad. So I think one of the things we could do is, by example, say, you know what? 6 o'clock. Didn't I say that we all are going to put our phones down and we're going to talk and have dinner with each other? Oh, so that we can always be that modelization for them. Yeah. So then children will not have leverage on you no time soon to say, well, I ain't never seen you do it. They're so famous for doing that because a lot of us have done it too with our parents. We have never seen it before. That would definitely, baby step by baby step to do that. And the consistency, which goes into the other part.
Consistency.
The consistency of doing that would definitely help. Now, I've seen this kind of rolled out a little bit before when they was like, okay, Monday through Friday during the school time, we're going to exercise this. We get one good free day off.
Right.
And pick what that day is and how many hours of it. So let's just say that that's Saturday for 5 hours. I can look forward to that after all of that because keep in mind, parents, leaders, legal guardians, you're helping somebody come off an addiction. Yes. It's an addiction. Anything that's added is an addiction to what you never had. My generation is a little bit different from yours because I don't know anything about a cell phone and going to get a little phone. My mother had a phone in the bedroom, and there was nobody get on the phone until, we give you the phone, and it was phone jacks. And I'm leaving it alone.
Right.
And I would just say for the workaholic parents that are here, this is good for you too. Because when you put that phone down, ain't no work going on, right? During dinner, there's no work. After dinner, there's no work. So this is a good tip for you that raised your hand as a workaholic. This is good for you.
The last thing I want to say is the family table. The family dinner table has to come back, y'all. It has to. And it has to come back in full effect. You have to sit at the family dinner table. Every day at dinner, my family, we go around and we say one positive thing from the day. You are required to find one thing positive for your day every single day at the end of the day. And we talk about it. We make whatever we had go through sound positive. And the family table, it's already been proven, builds a stronger bond, builds better connection, builds kids that have agency over their opinion, over who they are as people, and are thriving in society better if they're at the family table and they're able to commune with their family in that type of way. Not around a TV, no TV, family table.
And if there's not a family table in your house, because I understand the economics, create something nice. So I don't care if you have coffee tables,
right. Put
them all together. If you don't have a table at all, make a mat.
Yep.
There is no excuse out of it. Yep. Because once you see that camaraderie like that, you be like, wow, we all sitting on pillows.
Yep.
And it has became a picnic.
Yep.
Now we're making a sound. I'm telling you, and there's so much joy and fun in it.
Yeah.
Before you know, you be like, look at us just falling on the floor because we ain't got no couch yet. That could be family planning on what we plan on shooting for as a family. So that is definitely important because every household is different.
And these are things that have been proven as fact that actually help. So these are not, I know this sounds very rudimentary, but these are actually stuff that's tangibly data stream to show that helps. So when she talks about illness to wellness, this is the wellness. This is the preventative stuff that we do ahead of time so that we don't get to the illness part of it.
Yeah. Great. So we're going to move into a different area of mental health to mental wellness, and we're going to talk a little bit about co-parenting. So, and let me just put a disclaimer, co-parenting, when I say co-parenting, I'm not talking about just parents that are separate in separate homes. You co-parent in the home. If you're married, you're co-parenting. If you're separated or divorced, you're co-parenting. So when we talk about co-parenting, we're talking about two parents that are engaged, coming together in agreement, right, on the behalf of the children. So co-parenting conversations. There was, behave yourself. There was a blog I read on OurFamilyWizard.com that was speaking directly to the benefits of co-parenting. Dr. Sims, in your coaching and counseling experience, what has been what has the experience been that you've seen in co-parenting and how it benefits our young people?
The maturity of the parents really taking a big account into the future for real. And not just saying, I'm looking out for your future because we're doing this thing together because me and your mama made you and all this other stuff. But just the benefit of living it out is definitely a big plus to really do it together and where it's lived out. And not just to say just because we have pictures with each other, we're doing selfies. So it's definitely a benefit to doing everything together. A lot of us have a homes that the mom may be the work one and the dad is left, or the opposite, or we don't really see dad. But as long as the child is able, or the children is able to see that there's some connection on a regular basis, and you can't tell the difference besides just going to sleep, that's powerful. That's a great benefit that will help them see that by the time they get to school, they're like, well, I can't even relate to that because our house is doing something different. Does it make you better than them? No. It says that the parents grabbed the responsibility and they took responsibility versus being irresponsible. And they found the value on, this is not just for now, this is also for next year and the next 6 months. And not just around the holidays when it's time to overcompensate with gifts.
And so there's 3 common themes around co-parenting. And I wanted you to talk about why it's so important. And that theme is cooperation, compromise, and communication.
The importance of cooperation is because if somebody don't cooperate, now you have imbalance. What do it mean by cooperating? Is that, hey, can we work together? Can we really agree? Or do we have to debate on everything? A lot of times, there's a lot of egos kick in. And we've done it generationally. It's so bad. Have any one of you all have ever said these things? You know, well, I'm your mama, go ahead and do what your mama do because I've been here, and your daddy, you know, stuff like that. That's bad teaching, and you're gonna get bad fruit from that. So communication, cooperation, and consistency. You have to be consistent on what you are projecting, because if you are getting upset with how they turn out, because children usually only act out what's been done at the house. Hello?
Say that one more time, Pastor.
Children usually perform and act out what they have been doing at the house. Think about this, out of 24 hours, because I taught school for 20 years, and I've had special ed, I had regular ed, and I've had even the ones that I've helped them behavior management with. And I'm just like, good Lord. And I had to always ask them, okay, are they from a regular single family home? I've seen statistics with that. I've seen them from single dad homes where the mother was negligent. We don't talk a lot about that. And then I've seen them where they was in foster care and things like that. So whatever environment that they came out of, they've escaped to come to the school hungry, or it's not enough, so they would steal the snacks, go back to the house. So, but for those of us who have made a decision to take responsibility, it's the consistency of what you're modeling. And that's what we get as educators or people who's in the field. So the communication is a big deal. Cooperating with 2 parents coming together to say, listen, what do we really want for this child? Have we really paid a lot of attention? Not just hear them, but listening. That's communication, because there's a difference. Hearing is just hearing the code of sound. Listening is that I paid undivided attention and I can list it out, what's going on with them. And then I also identify that they have gifts and talents. That communication piece is big with dad and mom. And it doesn't matter if it's gender related or whatever. They need to know, because both are needed for their future. But if you don't be consistent, if you do not cooperate and you don't communicate, that says that your household is selfish. The parents only think about themselves. And I gotta work. And I. And the child is looking like, I can't even apply for a job. I don't even know what you're talking about yet. And for those of us who are in the church, Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way that they should go, not in the way not in the way that you went.
Okay, you got to repeat that one, Pastor.
Proverbs, which is written by Solomon, which was considered one of the most wisest men in the Bible. Am I right, sir? He says, train up a child in the way that they should go. In other words, you should have made some concerted time to see where in direction have they've been created to do. So if they are on track or basketball, I need to make that investment in where they're going. And then when they get older, they won't depart from the faith, the teaching, and their cultural. But if you rob them from that, because you have two parents who cannot seem to get it together and they are debating, then you rob the child from even getting started.
And the final, the final C was compromise.
Compromise, which means to give and to give. Now, in relationships, this is the dysfunction that I've been taught and also had a lot of studies. In relationships, we've been told that we should what? Give and what? That's wrong, and that's why we have problems. In relationship, compromise means to give and give. Everything about God, he gave. And you praying to a God that you want him to give to you. But in relationship, something that you should be able to compromise and give. Well, this is what I give to the table. Like we always talk about this table, whatever this table is. I never even seen the table. What you bringing to the table? What they're really asking is, what can you compromise and bring on your end that I can compromise? Even the United States had a great compromise. You had the southern states and you had the northern states. They came together and they was a United States of America.
That's my subject.
Right? So that's the compromise. Okay, we know that we're different. Mississippi will never look like Colorado. You know what I mean? New York would never look like Texas. But can we compromise and come together and be united and have our own differences but come together? So when you have these two parents that come with two different backgrounds, two different ideologies, two different spectrums and go, okay, can we not be selfish and think about our child and see what are they going and what do they like? And until then, let's work together. Because you will usually find out what's within your child. You realize that I don't even know what I'm talking about because I never even, I skipped past algebra. I've been co-parenting with my daughter's mom for years, and she'd be 30 years old. I think I got a little experience. She'd be 30 years old in January. And for years, everybody used to think that she was going to be like me or be like her. Now we're in the position we're like, well, what do you want to be? And for some years, she was struggling. I don't know what I want to be. Everybody told me, let's write down what have you discovered about you. And that's what we're starting to value now. But who wants to wait 30, 35 years, you all? We have to do better.
And that actually is really a good segue into my next question for you.
Okay.
Is it important to bring our youth into the conversation when establishing co-parenting guidelines?
I would say yes. As a human, we're naturally built to have input. But if you put them out, then that's negligence. And I'm not going to feel a part of it, which is also usually the root of rejection. Now, what if I have a struggle from my other counterparts that I might, what I discover about myself, and I'm 6, and I'm 7, or I'm 9, that I might like the same girls because I've never been around boys. My mother and them never have time to put them around an integrated setting because they think one way or they think we got to be a certain religion. So, yes, it's definitely beneficial.
And then my final question around
Yes, ma'am.
co-parenting for you is, why are true apologies and forgiveness as parents and co-parents necessary for the lifetime of their dependent children?
Great question. The apologies and forgiveness has to be modeled. I said it once again. Apologies to your child. Here's the reason. Because none of us, if I can be almost kind of do a little survey in here, how many of you guys ever had a real true apology from your parents for bringing you up in poverty? Most of us have that story. Yeah, we was raising food stamps. We didn't know, because the average child was not planned, but it was planned because you was planning on having pleasure. So out of pleasure was the response of a child. And the child had to experience, wow, I was never wanted. You guys never even wanted me at all. So dealing with that. Some will be vocal about it. Some may not be vocal about it. Some don't even have the opportunity to even speak about how it really is. You know what I mean? And so it's definitely important to have the mindset to say, if it's anything that I failed at, own it. Say, you know what? And saying the word I apologize is not an apology. Saying, hey, owning it. I am sorry for bringing you up at a time and not giving you everything that you need to have. I was not at the games like you really wanted me to be that. And be ready for that. And that's not just when they're a child, but it's when for the lifetime of the child. Because remember, as you get older, they do too. They still your child. And the reality is, even if you have grandchildren, that's your child too. But the most ultimate thing I would say this is that God wants to see if you have a forgiving heart so you can also be a model for them to be forgiving. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And you must have been in my car this morning because I had that very conversation with my 38-year-old daughter about, I had to apologize to her and say, baby, I did not have it then. The expectations you had of me when you were 6 and 7, I didn't have it. I couldn't give you what I didn't have. But if you allow me today, at this point, we're going to take this thing. We're going to take this thing. And so I was in my feelings a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Because she called me out. But I'm a grown woman. I had to say, you know what, baby, you're right. I wasn't on top of it. My focus, because she said, well, Mom, I feel like you weren't there for me. I said, forgive me for being concerned about you having a roof over your head and some food in your mouth and that we wasn't sleeping on the street. Forgive me for thinking about that as a focus. But see, that wasn't important to her.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
I didn't bring her into the conversation about why Mama's at work, workaholic, that why Mama's at work all the time. And it's important because you don't want to have the conversation I had today, right? At your 38 and 40-year-old child is saying, well, you were never there for me. And you have to swallow it and say, you know what, you were right. You're right. But I'm gonna pause right there. We're gonna put a pin in this, and this conversation is rich, right? Has this been good?
Can I say one more thing?
If you say it quick.
About co-parenting, you already entered into an agreement when you had the child, y'all. So you already entered into the agreement, and all you're doing after that is you're just doing negotiations.
Yes, yes. Wonderful. So we're going to go into Q&A. I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Miller, and she's going to help facilitate question and answers that you may have for the panel.
Hasn't this conversation been good? Been very rich. And so we're going to take, we have time for a few questions. And so what I'm going to ask you is to limit your question to 30 to 45 seconds to ask. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but we still have a couple more things that we want to share with you. And I'm going to ask you if you want to ask a question. Elder Gregory Coleman is on that side. We'll hold the mic for you, and you'll be able to come up. Or you can come to my side. What we want to do is to make sure that we have the individuals on camera. This is being video streamed live, and we want everybody to be able to see the variety and diversity of who is asking the question. So you're welcome to come up here on this side or the side where Elder Gregory Colbert is.
Don't be shy, y'all. Come on. Y'all got questions.
Yes.
Come on, Cynthia.
And I just want to say thank you, guys. I appreciate this. Has been great. So I appreciate y'all.
I have 2 grown sons. All of you were wonderful, and I wish I had that training years later. But I'm blessed with some grandchildren, and I have this massive headache. And when I talk to her, I already know that, and I want to know, how do you get around that and you don't have to knock them out?
So,
Is this an adult child or a young child? This your grandchild, you said? Oh, well, they know everything.
so the
No, they
question-
really do know everything.
so
They
the
really do.
The question is, how do you better your communication
Yes,
with a
yes.
20-year-old? I'm just trying to
Yes.
say it back to you.
Yes.
The reason why, I'm going to say this, the reason why she's responding to you like that is because something is going on within that child. The response has nothing to do with you and has everything to do with where that person is at that time. Because if somebody is speaking and they're responding to you already and they already have it set that whatever you say doesn't matter and doesn't have value, then something either communication-wise, trauma-wise happened in their past and has some either transference to you or has something to do with you. And they don't have the language to tell you that's it. So they're just gonna lash out every time you talk, because if you're giving me information, it sometimes says it's not the message, it's the messenger. It doesn't have anything to do with the message, it has something to do with the person that's delivering the message. So whether it's you or something else, because it don't have to necessarily be you, something else that happened, that person is automatically going to respond in that way for that reason. There is no reason why somebody would automatically just on somebody without, in their family, without a real rooted issue.
Dr. Sims? Well, we're
The
not,
question-
we're not diagnosing.
We're not diagnosing, but this is what I was, because I think this is the realm of communication. This is not because we don't have to diagnose somebody that has a communication issue. This is a communication issue, right? So in terms of that, the conversation is, please forgive me. Can you please tell me why you're reacting that way? Is there something that we need to talk about? Is this what you typically do with your friends? Is this what you typically do with the people that you love? Tell me somebody that you love that you speak to in that way, because love sounds like love. And this doesn't sound like love to me. All of a sudden, that 23-year-old is either going to dart and run out the door because you got too deep, or they're going to say, you know what, I've been waiting for you to have this conversation. I got something to tell you.
I would add to say mother. No, I'm just adding. I would add to say, once they say, well, I already know all of that already, but this is what I want to say. I would let them get that all out and just ask the question in your radio tone and say, well, tell me what you know. That way, no, honestly, because what happens is it turns a communication piece into you listening, because the average person get their freedom by confessing. And if they can't confess what it is, you let them get it all out, and then you go, now let me ask you a question. Now I gave you a platform to talk. Are you open to hear what I've been trying to say? Because if the doors is closed, then you can just revisit. Because remember, you have the leadership. Yeah. They're too busy trying to be heard. Now I'm a communication major, so I kind of know that space. When a person's trying to be heard, they don't want to hear you. I want to hear. And even us as adults talking to other adults, even though this is adult child, the average person listen enough to respond. They don't want to listen to you to adhere or comprehend, to let it resonate, as we like to say a lot. They don't want it to penetrate, because that makes me have to change. And we don't like to change like that, because then when you start pointing out stuff, you're going to wind up holding me accountable, mama. You know what I mean? So just ask the question. Let them get it out, And the more you exercise that, the more they be like, I already know, because what's going to happen is they're going to say, I already know what you're going to say. Go ahead and get it out. And then all you do is, you just smile and be like, I'm ready. I'm waiting. And drop what you're doing and give them all that attention. And the average person don't like that. But that's what they've been looking for, some attention, because at the school they might not get it. And then if you're working hard, like all of us kind of pretty much confessed up here that we've been busy, and had to get free from that, to prevent them from getting older to be like us, to say, I'm looking at me, so this is why I want to listen to you.
Thank you. We have a question on this side of the sanctuary.
Can't hear.
But I have the exact.
Can't hear that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got you now. Go ahead.
Okay. I have the exact opposite situation. I have grown children, not children, grandchildren. They'll listen to, or I guess they're listening. They don't say anything, but they'll listen to whatever I have to say. But they will not change. Have no indication that they heard, but they are polite. They just listen and just go on about being the same way.
So let me just make sure I heard what you said, because I think it was kind of going in a little bit.
Yeah, she's basically saying that they're listening, nothing is changing. It's just
Okay.
a circle.
Are these grown children? Are these grown children?
Yes,
So let me,
she's my cousin.
I'll come to Mr. Smith in a second, but let me say this. Although we want to be the solution, we may not always be the solution. Our kids and grandkids have watched us for years evolve. Because of who we were, they watched us. And they may have lost respect for us because of our own behavior. So we had to mature and come into a new space. So you may be experiencing something where you may not be the solution. We got to connect them with someone that can speak their language, that can drop right down in their face just like this and connect with them. And so that's why these resources that are going to be here tonight, are available, because we may not always be the solution. I have a 20-something-year-old granddaughter, and she know everything. I got it, Grandma. You ain't got. I got it. I'm gonna work it out. Like, you ain't lived long enough to work out anything. But I realized I may not be the right solution for her. So I went to seek out someone that I knew that could connect with her. They may not necessarily be her age, but they can connect with her on this situational level that she's in right now. And so I connected them. And then I just got out the way.
Can I also add, sometimes we have to be comfortable planting seeds. We got to be comfortable planting seeds and not always knowing they're gonna grow in our lifetime. And then the one thing I tell, me and Laura talk about often, don't get attached to the outcome. This is for everybody. Don't get attached to the outcome. If you're going to give free advice, then free advice means free. We get too involved, and this is for mental health, you guys. We get too involved with people's situations that we can't just give them the free advice and let it go, because we're attached to the outcome, and there's ownership in the information we gave them. That's not free advice. That's paid advice. You have to allow people to live their life, and when you give them that information, you have to allow them to, you free yourself from their outcome. Don't get attached to it, because the moment you get attached to their outcome, you're in a state of hell, because you're constantly looking at, well, I told you to do it this way. Well, you didn't do it. Well, that's why you, and why they're going about their business, minding their business. They ain't heard you the first 5 times. Because their outcome is different. They have a vision for themselves that's different than what you have for them, which is what he talked about, Proverbs something, 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 and that's what he said. Now, that's what I said he said, okay? And I don't, 2797, okay?
Thank you so much. We could continue this conversation on, but we have some guests. Thank you for the richness and the transparency.
But I think there's one more question. So let's
I apologize.
let's do this last
we're going
question, and then we want to do an introduction to some persons that we have here from the state of Arizona.
So I just wanted you to speak to the fact of mental health and physical illness for adults. I do have a young child, but he's not my problem. I'm talking about what happens to me as a single black woman with my own mental health struggles and what happens to me physically in my body, if you just want to share.
Dr. Sims?
So you're asking, what do you do with yourself, or what would you advise?
If the impact of mental health on your physical health.
Mental health and your physical health.
Oh,
How the two come
fatigue,
together and
right.
elicit a response.
Well, before I make any statements, have you sought out to go to any type of specialist to even seek out about how it can affect you mentally? That can definitely, is the result to go to you physically.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I would definitely, and the reason why I said that, because a lot of people want that information without still being afraid to go further, you know, because a lot of things that we do deal with mentally does affect you physically, and then we don't want to go further than that to even get help, ladies and gentlemen. So the effects of that is very, very strong. I would definitely encourage you to continue therapy and some other assistance in those areas, so you can really address the root of it, and that's going to free a lot of that energy, fatigue, momentum, because it might be something that has emotionally or mentally struck you of some past trauma. I will also say that once you can just write more things down in journaling, I kind of feel like you do, right? Okay. So advance that. I would say that advance that, and I've shared this with several other people that was like, I'm in between a gray area, because it's affecting me, whereas I don't even want to do nothing, and I don't even feel like, you know, and then I don't feel like my calling is this, and then I don't. But what happens is, it's layered. It's a lot of layers to this thing, and you can't take it lightly. And here's the deal: I applaud you for taking the responsibility to even want to.
Yes.
Because it's going to break a lot of the stuff all around you. So whatever that's emotionally or have been a mental traumatization or something that has hit you like that, really, really write down all those different feelings and those events. So whoever you see going to more therapy, they can help you, and it's going to shorten the learning curve. That will give you some excitement because it's like, oh, I'm not by myself, and I don't have to operate alone, and I can still do more than what I even realized. I just had these things that happened to me in 2000, you know what I mean? I don't know if that was helpful for you.
Can I also add that?
Briefly.
Yes, briefly. Yes, you need 15 minutes of sun. You need exercise. Exercise is a untapped, but needs to be tapped every day. Unlimited amount of endorphins can be sent off in your body if you just walk for 20 minutes every day, constantly. Also, some of the effects to your body could be somebody who loses and gains weight all the time. That is also mental health. Somebody that loses weight, loses 30, gain 30 or gain 40. Loses 30, gain 40. Those kind of weight loss issues can also affect your mental health, or can be affected. Your mental health can affect that. Also, when people go on certain different medications, they have other things in their body that happen, right? They have side effects, whether it's twitching, whether it is your body having frail bones. There's so many things that can happen with your body, with your mental health. If it's not in check, your body's gonna tell you. I know in black women, fibroids, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes on within women's bodies and men's bodies that are a constant check on your mental health, because your mental health is telling your body what to do. Your mental covers your physical. So if your mental is in disarray, your body's going to be in somewhat of disarray as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kenneth Smith.
Yes, ma'am.
We appreciate that. And so we want to take and shift a little bit on this portion of the town hall. We have some special guests that are here from the state of Arizona. They actually have collaborated with us on this town hall. We look forward to future collaborations. And so they want to share some information about what the state of Arizona can do, what's available, and so we're very glad they're here. I'm going to bring up Erin I apologize, Eron Patton Stinson, who is the Denver Economic Ombudsman. Let me get that right. So anyway, thank you for coming, and thank you for being here.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. I'll try to be brief. I brought some of my co-workers with me, but first of all, because I know a lot of you here, I just want to say I thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this evening. It's Eron Patton Stinson, and I am the DES, Department of Economic Security Ombudsman. And first of all, Bishop Russell and Pastor Miller, thank you all for putting this together. So briefly, as far as DES, we have several programs and divisions that operate in DES. So we just wanted to give you a brief overview, and something that stood out, I want to talk about that, but I'm gonna use my notes so I don't ramble. You know, DES started in 1973 actually. It was put together as far as a collaboration of different health agencies. And so it's been around 50 years, so we should be excited to even say anything about DES existing. Now I know there are challenges with DES, but again, it didn't take 50 years to get where we are now, so it's gonna take a little bit more to improve where we're going, correct? So one of the great things about DES, and if we can go back to the first slide, I think it was maybe the second slide, is we have a new director. Her name is Angie Rogers. And one thing that I'm really learning and starting to embrace about her is that her love for human services. She has a background in that area for over 25 years in public advocacy and human resources. And before she came to DES, she joined us this year in January of this year. She had 10 years of working with the food bank. She was the president and the CEO of the food bank. So she has a lot of compassion and for human resources. And so under her leadership, I only have a couple of slides because this is so important to me. This is something that we have just done recently here, hot off the press. It's not even in the books that you guys have. This is our new vision under our leader. She challenged our leaders to think about, what does DES really mean? What is our role? What is our goal? How do we reach the individuals? How do we work? How do we continue to be more collaborative in what we do? And so this is our new vision. I think it just came out on Friday. So our new vision, our mission, and our values, I don't need to read them to you, but I wanted to share them with you. Then there's something else I wanted to share. As an ombudsman, basically we're the complaint department. So we get all the complaints about the programs. Not every complaint that comes into DES comes to us, but we get our share of them. And the concerns are valid, so we don't want to dismiss them. But the thing about the Ombudsman's Office, we are not attorneys, we're advocates, but we're advocates for the process. So if you are having a challenge with your benefits of any sort, and you've gone through the proper channels, you've reached out, and you're not getting the assistance or the answers that you need, then you're more than welcome to use us as a resource so that we can help find out what is happening with your case. But again, you must follow the process. Okay? And so there's a team of us, and even in the booklet, our number is in there and our email is listed in the Ombudsman's Office. One of the key things about what we do as well is we try to help the programs really identify what gaps may be existing. We have individuals that come with complaints. In June, we had over 534, and so far in July, we had 611 complaints that my team addressed. And so what we're looking and using that information for is to help leaders to determine what we can do better to improve. So one of the key things, and then I'm gonna get out of here and let my coworkers come up here, but one of the key things that I wanted to share is because I believe it was something you said last time. He didn't know how many programs we had, and I'll let April do that slide in a minute. But then also you didn't know, it was one other thing when my leader, Leah Landrum Taylor, got up and spoke about it and gave that really brief thing about what DES does. It came up that it says, when people are having mental health, they don't always feel comfortable going into an office, or when they're having anxiety. And that hit me as the ombudsman. That is some of the complaints we hear very often about getting the assistance, people not understanding me, I can't get through on the phone. So those are the issues that we're looking at DES. How can we do better to partner with you and provide better services for you and to be more embracing and understanding? And so let you know we are working on that. But Leah Landrum Taylor couldn't be here tonight because she already had a previous engagement even when you sent out the invite, but she just wanted to tell you that she wished she could have been here, but there's one special thing she wanted to share. When we talk about mental health, Leah shared a very, very personal story with me yesterday. She said over the weekend her family had this big party for the August birthday. She says August is the best month, right? So she said in that party, one of her cousins, that younger cousins that she hadn't seen in a while, came to the party. They were loving on him, paying him so much attention, so happy to see him. And she said it was just the joy of her life. She was dancing with him. She was so proud. He looked so great. He sounded so great. He acted so great. She said, and then Sunday they had another event that she could not attend. The sad piece about this is I believe she said either Sunday night or Monday, she got a call that that very same young man had taken his life. So she wanted me to share that because this was really going to be, it was an important piece to her already, but now experiencing that in your own family, it brings to you another level. So I want you to just keep her in your prayers and anyone else who's going with anything, struggling with that when you think about it. So now she really understands that mental health is really, really a very severe thing that we struggle with. So I just want to share that. But very quickly, I have two of my coworkers here for me. I just want to tell them thank you so much for coming to support this. We have April Jones, who is part of our community engagement team, and then we have Delia Morris, who is also with DDD, one of the other programs. So come on up right quick and share your spill. And I'm sorry I rambled longer, but I wanted to share that information.
Thank you, Ron, so much. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm just going to try and be brief, but there's a lot to cover. So this is like the condensed version. So I wanted to talk just briefly about our 7 programs, seven divisions. So we have Aging Adult Services. You can read these, I don't have to go through all of them. Another one I'd like to mention is the Arizona Early Intervention Program, which is if there are children that are having what appear to be developmental delays, they have resources available for children, and the resources are just amazing. But if you know anyone who has a child birthed up to age 3, and they feel like they're having developmental delays, please have them do a referral, or they can go online and refer themselves. It's The services are amazing, and it sets kids up for a much better outcome for their entire life. So not all of our programs are income-based. We have some that are not. So our early intervention program, our child support, developmental disabilities have programs, and then also employment rehabilitation services also have some programs that are not income-based. But speaking of income-based, we know that people who are living at or below the poverty level suffer much more with mental illness, especially depression. I think almost twice as much for depression. And so being able to provide some of these services to help people, if you're struggling with working 2 jobs or 3 jobs, or transportation issues, or am I going to be able to buy food? Am I going to be able to pay the rent? Can I pay my bills? Medical issues. Just having some of those resources available, and just having, even if a little bit of that tension is taken away, which is what our services can do. We can provide cash benefits, medical benefits, many of those things. And so if we can alleviate even a little bit of that stress, that helps. So I also wanted to mention, Leah wanted us to mention that we also work with some of our other agencies, and we provide an informational forum to the service providers throughout the state. And so we have an opportunity to share with them updates about what we're doing. We invite Department of Child Safety, Access, which is the Medicare program, and then we also have Social Security Administration that join us, and also Department of Health. And so we work together sharing that information out into the community for those service providers so that they're aware of what's going on with our agency and organizations, and they're keeping updated, and so they can provide that information out into their communities. And I just got to check and make sure I covered everything. I believe I did. So again, thank you so much. And I just briefly want to mention that another one of our coworkers is here with us this evening, Barisha Black. She is our, yes. So actually, Barisha and I have worked together for many, many years, and it's great to have her back on our team. She's our volunteer engagement coordinator, and so she is bringing people into the agency to volunteer, especially if somebody is interested in that kind of work. They can volunteer and figure out what that, what kind of work we're doing. But she's also working with getting us out into the community, volunteering with organizations around the state. So if you ever have volunteer opportunities, she's the one to see. So, and Thea, it's yours. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Thelia Morris, and I actually am part of the Division of Developmental Disabilities. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about what we do and how it ties into the mental health or behavioral health space. I want to personally say that I learned a lot, thank you all, because I have my husband is over there, we have twin 16-year-old boys, so we'll be having some conversations about screen time. We all will be praying for each other.
I get it.
Okay, so with that said, DDD, it is an organization within DES that really provides supports and services to individuals who have developmental disabilities. So when you think about developmental disabilities, you're talking about things like autism, or Down syndrome, cognitive or intellectual disability, epilepsy, cerebral palsy, etc. Okay? We serve over 51,000 Arizonans within the state. And I want you to also think about our mission, right? Our mission, I'm going to read it because I think it's powerful. You heard Iran talk about the DES mission, but our mission from DDD is about empowering individuals with developmental disabilities to lead self-directed, healthy, and meaningful lives, right? That means that they have choices that they can make, even though they may be living with a developmental disability. Okay. Now, at DDD, we have an administration. So think about it as a big team of people. And it's called the Behavioral Health Administration. And that is a group of wonderful individuals who are focused really on working with those individuals who have a development disability, and they're also working with a mental health or behavioral health, right, issue as well. And in that space, we have doctors, we have psychologists, we have trained professionals who work together as a team to help those individuals work through whatever it is that they need, whatever services that they need. This is a group of people who make it happen. Now, part of my role at DDD is I help the division get projects done, okay? And so when you think about work, that any sort of improvement that we have to make to help improve the way that the individuals we serve have increased the outcomes, these are some of the things that we do, we work on. So I want to talk a little bit about 3 of the projects that we have going on in the behavioral health space. So one of the areas that we're working on is something that we're called the Enhanced Behavioral Group Home. And it is a residential setting that really focuses on providing a space, a home for those who have an intellectual development disability, and also they may be experiencing some mental health, increased needs in mental health. So we know sometimes that when you have those 2 things that are combined together, it's hard to find space for them to call home. So we're working with some of our partners to help increase the number of those residential spaces for those people that we love and that we serve, so they can find a place to call home. 2 other things that we're working on is really about how do we increase the number of providers who can serve both those who have an intellectual development disability and are dealing with behavioral health, right? And we know that, again, that's hard to find. You'll have those who are focused more on the behavioral health and the mental health side, but they may not have the IDD, or the intellectual development disability side of things. So we're working together to try to increase the number of those providers who can serve that population through training and things like that. And the third thing that we're doing is, what about the caregivers? What about the family members, right, who are working, who are living day to day with those individuals that we love? They need support as well. They need additional training. So we're also beefing up our offerings of services and trainings for those family members so that they too will have access to information that helps them improve the way in which they support their family members who need that support. And in addition, we think at the end of the day, when we look at all these things, we're always looking at the way in which we can improve outcomes, right, to the individuals that we serve. So we see it as a collective effort. The things that we're doing behind the scenes, at DDD, and then of course what we're doing within the community to help those individuals that we serve. So those are things I just want to share with you, right? So you'll hear more about it. You will see that out there we had a couple of booklets. There is one called Navigating the System, and then this is the DES one, right? So Navigating the System will spiral around. Thank you. Round book. This book tells you everything you need to know about DDD, and if there are any services that you believe that someone in your family may be eligible for, take a look at this and follow through the process. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I hope you learned something. I'm glad that I came, and now I want to turn it over to our senior pastor, Bishop Burton Russell Jr.
Amen. We just want to, first of all, thank Ms. Laura Bullock, Mr. Kenneth Smith, Dr. Cortez Sims for this wonderful time that we've had today. Valuable information has been imparted. I know that there are some challenges for some of us as parents as we go home to have some of these conversations that really need to be had. They are long overdue. And so thank you, Iran, my friend from high school, a few years ago. Go Mustangs. Thank you, with DES and DDD, I need to talk to you because there's a person in my family that I need to talk to you about, as relates to DDD. So since I have you here, I'm going to use you now. I'm not going to wait to go through all of the other stuff.
Come on,
Amen.
the process,
You came, and so it is ripe for tonight. Amen. So if we can just, we're not stand. I'm so used to being in church.
Yes.
Amen. Stand. But I just want to again say thank you to all of you who are in here, those of you who are viewing, streaming. This collaboration today was not in vain. Great things were said tonight, and I know that there will be great results coming. So take this information, use it, use the resources that have been put out there, and let's go and let's do better and be better men and women of God. Amen. Go in peace in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Thank you. If you
The panelists wanted me to let you know